been really, really rough. I'm not sure if you're familiar with third grade and this Read to Achieve
Yes.
whole portfolio thing.
Yes.
We're wrapping up the portfolios and we're preparing for EOGs next week,
Right.
and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a busy time. I know. I try not to make school visits during this time for that reason.
Right,
Uh,
right. And because we are year round, we don't do EOGs until next week.
mhm. Well, hopefully it'll all go well for you.
Yes, it's going. It's going. It's going actually.
How many minutes a day do y'all do reading? Are y'all up to 120 minutes a day now?
No, we're actually at 90, but we're moving up based on my recommendations I've made. We're moving up to 120 next week. Sorry, next week, next year. I'm sorry.
Hmm. You can't get it all done with what you're talking about now. A lot of the districts have already moved up to 120. You just don't have
Right,
time in mind.
exactly. That's exactly what I told them, because and then another 30 minutes for writing, because writing has been ignored a lot, and that's lacking in many of the schools.
Right.
Many of our kids are not able to write anymore. And so, based on recommendations I've also made, we're making some improvements for next school year.
Good. Good. Yeah, I think you'll see a big difference if you go to 120 for reading. I think that's the key.
Definitely,
Otherwise,
definitely.
you can't get it all done.
No.
All right. Well, I see it's about 7:02, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining me. I don't know if anybody else is with us, but we're going to go ahead and kick it off tonight. You can see from our weekly schedule that our big topic tonight in week 2 is leading adult learners. Last week I shared with you um, um, good to great in the social sectors, and we'll review that. It's about high expectations. These are my keys to leading adult learners. Always start with the end in mind, give explicit how-to instruction, model desired behavior, show examples, monitor and give feedback often, always be positive, work from the positive. Recognize. Now, again, that recognize means if people email you, you email them back. If people call you, you take their call. If folks come to your office during office time, you invite them in and you hear them, you recognize them as being a valued member of your organization. And you do that by acknowledging them and then reward them for their behavior. There is there's another document here that I have that goes a little deeper from Cindy Rigsby. She was a National Teacher of the Year finalist and Teacher of the Year in North Carolina from Orange County. And here's the things that she said that makes a good principal. Good principal understands the school is family. Teachers are treated as professionals. Instruction in the school is data driven. And that's one of the points that I wanted to pause and reflect on tonight. When we talk about data-driven decisions, not just do we analyze our own data and decide what our areas of most pressing need are, as you did with your app sale. And the reason why we had you do that is every school in North Carolina, public school and charter, are required to put a local program in to reduce the gap between subgroups. That's fairly easy to look at your subgroup data. But data-driven instruction also means that you find programs that have proven through their research and through their data, have proven to work in situations like yours. One of the biggest mistakes that I see emerging leaders make is they'll do all their due diligence on data analysis of their school scores, but then they won't. Then they'll try something that somebody else has used, or they've heard about another program, or somebody suggests something to them. They won't do their due diligence on data mining to see the results that other people have had implementing that program. And too often they have a solution, they have a program that they like, and they hunt a problem to try to plug it into. I've told the story many times. I worked for a superintendent several years ago in a district, and he had a solution hunting a problem. It only worked for about 30% of our schools, but he was determined to try to make it work in all of them. It didn't. Um, it was one of the wasn't a bright and shining time for us in that district. But that was the only solution he knew. He did not do his due diligence on data to find out how well this program worked across different subgroups. Uh, he thought it would work with everybody. It didn't. Too many times, principals make that same mistake. Somebody else in their district who is at a completely different school population than theirs has done something and it went well, and they think it might go well at their place. Um, I worked with a principal many years ago, and he tried a program in a rural public school that had been piloted in a private Catholic school in a middle school, and he was in an elementary school, and he didn't understand why it was such a disaster. Well, there was not a goodness of fit. So when we talk about instruction being data driven, also solutions, programs, treatments, fixes, whatever we're going to put in place also needs to be data driven. There should be reliable data out there that says this program has a reasonable expectation of working in the school that you're in. Moving along, great principals are student centered. They reach out to families. They have great reservoirs of energy. They promote school spirit and teamwork. They develop young leaders within their building. They have good help. Those are the things that make principals great. So we've talked about things that principals should do. Here are some things that bosses should never do. Um, Never make employees evaluate themselves. I know that we're all into self-reflection now and a lot of those kinds of things. The problem with that is most everybody thinks they're above average. Rarely will you get somebody who reflects accurately through their evaluation. Now, if you ask them to reflect, you might get a more, but get a more realistic view from folks when they do a self-assessment. But if you ask them to evaluate themselves, um, rarely will they evaluate themselves because they know that that's for keeps. But rarely will they evaluate themselves accurately. It leads to uh, great conflict. So it's okay to have employees self-reflect, but not to evaluate themselves. Um, One of the things that I don't like is, especially in secondary, we have this habit of having department chairs evaluate the people underneath them. I think that's a really bad decision. That's an abrogation of your leadership responsibility. You need to be in charge. You need, for good or for bad, you need to be the person as the leader of the organization who takes the slings and arrows for people's evaluations when folks aren't doing what they need to. Don't put that on somebody else. Don't pressure your employees to make charitable donations. I worked for a superintendent one time who he sent out what the goal was for each of our schools in terms of United Way, and whatever we came up short, we had to write a check for as principals, and then we had to write a check separately because if you wanted to be a member of his team, you had to throw in $500 on your own. That's really all I remember about him. I can't say much good. I just remember that I thought he certainly wasn't my kind of person. Don't pressure your employees to make charitable donations. Don't make employees go without food at meal times. If you're doing staff development, have something there for them to eat. Um, um, don't make employees attend social events that they're not interested in. Um, don't make employees reveal personal information under the guise of team building, because that stuff always comes back to bite you and to them. And don't ask employees to do things you don't do. Remember, the key to being a transformational leader, as we talked last week, is being a servant leader. That you do the tough things right along with your teachers, but don't ask them to do things that you won't do. All of these are, again, about leading adult learners. Now, let's go back to a little theory here. Frederick Hertzberg is probably what we would consider to be the father of motivational theory. He has motivation and hygiene factors, and you can read this. It's on our board again under Zoom session 2. But here's the important part right here that I have in bold for you. This is going to hurt some of your feelings, and it did mine when I first heard it, but I had to come to learn that it was true, and I had to accept it. According to Hertzberg, and it's absolutely the truth, for your teacher employees, as you are the leader, there are satisfiers and dissatisfiers in their job. Job satisfiers, the satisfiers deal with factors involved in doing the job, whereas job dissatisfiers deal with factors which define the job context. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's real simple. Principals, you can be a dissatisfier for teachers, but you can never be a satisfier. Let me say that again. You can be a dissatisfier, but you cannot be a satisfier. That has to do with the job, doing the job itself, that point of contact in the classroom between teachers and students. That's where teachers derive their job satisfaction. The best you can hope to do is not be a dissatisfier where they hate their job because of you. That speaks to the things that I have talked about. The positive things that you're supposed to do, and avoiding the negative things in that list I just read you, things that you should never do. But understand, even if you do the positive things, and even if you avoid the negative things, you will not be a satisfier for teachers. What has to be a satisfier for them is the interaction in their classroom with students. It's just that simple. Now, so we understand now that we're out there, we're trying to do no harm, basically, is we're trying to do the right thing for teachers. We're trying to not do the wrong things, but understanding that they derive their satisfaction from what goes on in their room. To that end, more research here for us this is actually out of Gardner Webb, and it's wonderful. It's a few years old, but not many. It's fairly new stuff. And Marty Hemrick, who was superintendent at Watauga at the time, and Dr. Uri and Dr. Shellman from Gardner Webb, they wrote an article. And what it says is teacher efficacy, how effective and how satisfied they are in their classroom, has a lot to do with student achievement. So that's I'm kind of brought you full circle here. That was my point in all this in terms of leading adult learners. You do the positive things, you avoid the negative things, understanding that you can't be the satisfier. The satisfier is what goes on in their classroom. And if teachers are happy with what's going on in their classroom, if you give them skills to be effective in their classroom through staff development, that would be efficacy, being good at your job, being effective. That's what satisfies teachers and makes them strive to be even better and better, and retains teachers. Yeah, you can run them off if you're an idiot and you're a dissatisfier. Yeah, you can run them off, but they will only stay and grow and get better if they're good in their classroom and they like what's going on in their classroom. So it goes back to you know, finding people who are willing, and it's your job as the administrator to make them able, willing and able. It's your job to make them able to customize the staff development for them that they can grow and develop as teachers, because that in the end will keep them with you. Just because they like you will have little or no bearing on whether they stay with you or not. And understanding from an organizational perspective that you can't keep turning over, especially new teachers, all the time. If they don't ever get past that 4-year point where they start to become more effective and cost effective in their classrooms, you can't move your organization along. You need to keep happy, qualified, effective teachers in the classroom. Do the good things, don't do the bad things, but understand if you don't develop them, if you just hire them and then you go to your office and close the door, they won't stick around. Well, he's a great guy, but I'm not succeeding in the classroom, and that's where the job dissatisfaction comes. Not so much from you, but not being effective in their classroom. So that speaks to kind of the model that we need to be looking at. All right. So if we look at HR retention strategies, they go. This speaks to standard 4. This is from the Irreplaceables, Understanding the Real Retention Crisis in Urban Schools. This is a really good document, and I've kind of summarized that article for you. And this speaks to for human resource management, leading adult learners. What can principals do to keep their high flyers in their school? Well, again, we want to develop them into high flyers, and then so this is what we have to do. And this speaks to exactly the things that I've covered tonight. Provide regular positive feedback. Regular and positive feedback. Goes back to good to great. Help me identify my areas of development. Give me critical feedback about my performance informally. Recognition, recognize my accomplishments publicly, inform me that I am high performing, answer my emails, take my calls, identify opportunities or path for teacher leader roles, put me in charge of something important. Again, it goes back to Whitaker's 5 levels of teacher empowerment as a school leader. You start out with, teaching other teachers. Then you get involved with, you get teachers involved with the school improvement team, and which is forming the school improvement plan. Then they get involved with curriculum. Then they get involved with resources, and then the holy grail is get them involved in personnel decisions. That's identified opportunities or paths for teacher leader roles and put me in charge of something important. That's what the APTEL is all about. That's what Whitaker speaks to in terms of empowering them as school leaders, and provide me with access to additional resources for my classroom. Again, you can't be a satisfier, but you can be a dissatisfier. They have to be satisfied with what's going on in their classroom. So getting additional resources for their classroom is paramount. So all of these things, there's a common theme among all these things that I've brought together here, the theoretical and the practical. There is a common theme. Do the right things, don't do the wrong things. Develop teachers, make them more effective in their classroom. They will stay with you and become high flyers. Do the reverse of any of those things, you will lose them. So these are important lessons for leading adult learners. And the last thing that I want to share with you, I believe it's the last thing. I didn't have a lot of things tonight. Go to my desktop and come here. Is this PDF from Whitaker? Let's look at it. So this summarizes everything that I have covered tonight. This is another Todd Whitaker article, and it's what great principals do differently. And so let's look at it. Leadership is already getting others to do something that you want done because they want to do it. Again, they want to be effective in their classroom. That's what you need for them to be. And that's what leadership is, getting them to do something that you want done because they want to do it. They want to feel that efficacy, that excitement. They want to feel that effectiveness, that success in their classroom. It's your job to help them do that. Okay, let me move this out of the way. Let's see if it'll work. All right, here we go. What great principles do look? Why look at great? Because good's just not good enough. It's people, not programs. 10 days out of 10. I mean, you got to do it every day. 10 in a row, 20 in a row, 30 in a row. You can't just be good every now and then. Make every decision based on your best teachers, not your worst teachers. Accept responsibility. Principal is the filter. We have to teach the teachers. There we go. And hire great teachers. Can't always hire great teachers. Great teachers aren't always out there. We have to find people who are willing and make them able. And we do that by teaching them. So we have to teach the teachers. We have standardized testing, and we all understand that. And we have to make sure that we understand that that's how we're measured nowadays. Focus on behavior, then focus on beliefs, loyal to who is most comfortable and who is least comfortable. We need to make sure that our most comfortable are our high performers and our least comfortable are our low performers. Understand your high achievers. Make it cool to care. Understanding your high achievers is very important. They're the people who are pulling the wagon. I hate to use all these metaphors, but they're the people who are doing the job, pulling the wagon. You need to make sure you understand your high achievers, that they want to be better all the time, that they're never going to be satisfied, that instead of discouraging them, you want to encourage them, which sometimes puts pressure and calls other people out, but that's okay. Don't make the mistake of being the principal who has 30 teachers. 29 are okay, and one is far above the others, but that one causes stress and strife and maybe animosity and jealousy in the other 29. You need to champion that one, not curtail the one so that they're all the same. You need to understand your high achievers. Make it cool to care. Make it cool to be that one that cares and goes the extra mile. Don't have to repair, always do repair. Basically be proactive, set expectations at the start of the year. Here are some questions that you ask. And here's a little litmus test for bad behavior. You can read that yourself, but what I wanted to cover, I have covered. So to summarize, I'm coming to the end of my time here. To summarize what we're talking about tonight, we're leading adult learners. They want to be successful in their classroom. That's paramount. That's the most important thing about teachers getting better and retaining quality teachers is they all want to be effective and want to do a good job in the classroom. Why that's important to us is the more effective they are in their room, the happier they are, the more job satisfaction they have, the higher student achievement becomes. We try to make sure we do the right things. Again, we have a list of those, and we don't do the wrong things. But always understanding is it's not about you as a principal. That whether they stay or whether they go, it depends on how well they're doing in their classroom. So it's your job to make sure that when you find willing people, every day your job is to make them better, is to make them able. That is your job in leading adult learners. Staff development, teaching the teachers is your job. Goes back to servant leadership, goes back to being a transformational leader. Transformational leaders inspire and motivate and teach. Let me say that again. Transformational leaders inspire, motivate, and they teach. And if you can do those things, you will be a successful leader. That's what this program is about. This course in 605 is about executive leadership. This, in my opinion, is the key component to school leadership, is what we've talked about tonight in leading adult learners. Understanding that you can't be a satisfier, but you can be a dissatisfier. So don't do the dumb and bad things. Always do the good things, even if you don't get the credit and even if they don't say thank you. You're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it so they will be better in their classrooms, and you'll all reap the benefits of student achievement. So that's the notion. In many ways, it's a thankless job, but your satisfaction has to be derived from getting teachers to perform and getting those test scores, those standardized test scores. That's what's important. Now, if you don't think standardized test scores are important, you're entering into the wrong profession, because they are the way we keep score in our profession. In private business, you keep score by how much money you make. You can say, well, that's not always the most important thing. Well, yeah, it is, because that's the reason you're in business. The reason we're in business is for students to achieve. So, yes, that's why we keep score. Couple of housekeeping things tonight. Make sure that you are aware of your task stream deadlines and keep up with your task stream work. I have about 4 of you who have not done your enrollment verification activity. Kenya, Lindsay, Godzetta. Robbie, you did yours, but it says no rather than yes. I don't know what that means. So you might want to go back, Robbie, and revisit that. I may have to clear it for you so you can go back. There's something, I guess there was a yes, no, and you answered no, and you're supposed to answer yes. Maybe, I don't know how the enrollment verification works, but take a look at those. But Kenya, Lindsay, Robbie, and Godzetta, make sure you do your enrollment verification so that we'll know that you're in class with us. Keep up with your discussion boards. You have one due each week. Make sure you get that. I don't do them by week in terms of, I don't make them available on Sunday night and close them the next Sunday night. Just make sure that you have all of them done by the end of the semester, and everything's good with me. Your important things right now are to hit all your task stream deadlines first, since you're graduating. As I've told you, if your site supervisor does not have their username and password to do your site supervisor dispositions and your certification of competency, email me and I'll get that to them. And we'll make sure we get those things done. Get your internship log uploaded. Make sure your competency folio, that your one round is done, and you upload it. You can go to intern materials here on our main screen if you need help doing those things. I have the videos right here under intern materials, as I told you last week. Just make sure you keep up. I'm not going to keep you. I only want to do 30 minutes tonight. It is a busy time. Yolanda and I were talking. I know it's a very busy time. You're either in review or in the middle of testing right now. So I understand that, but don't get too far behind. You got a couple more weeks of school. Some of you. And I know you can kind of catch up with your discussion boards and different things then. So make sure you do. Your task framework takes priority right now. Make sure your evidence artifact and those things are done. Anybody have any questions? Anything for the good of the group before we go tonight? Let's see.
I just wanted to go backtrack to when you said something about not having teachers evaluate themselves.
Yes.
How does that tie in with the North Carolina evaluation process where we do our self-evaluation at the beginning of the year? How does that, tie in with that right there?
Well, what we're talking about here is don't have teachers do the formal evaluations. Don't have teachers fill out their own. Principals used to do that. They would call teachers in at the end of the year and have them fill out their own evaluation. Don't do that.
Okay.
That's what if they put down that they're superior and everything and they aren't? Or you got to step up. The reason why principals did that is they didn't want to be responsible or didn't want teachers angry at them. Well, if you're not willing to be responsible or have teachers might be angry at you, then you're never going to help them grow. So you can't let them evaluate themselves. They can do self-assessments, but that final formal evaluation, that's got to be you. That's your job. You can't delegate that. Now, and in terms of peer reviews, it's very good to do peer evaluation formatively, but not summatively. That's why I said years ago, when I was a high school principal, it's been a long time, but one of the common practices as a high school principal is they would have the department chairs do the teacher evaluations so that the teachers be mad at the chair and not the principal again. No, you got to step up. If you got to, so what would happen is they'd give all their buddies great marks and wouldn't be teaching at all. That's a very incestuous system, almost inbred. You can't do that. You have to be the one. You have to step up. You have to do teacher evaluations. You can't let them do their own. You can't let their buddies do theirs. You have. Each of those functions is, in a formative sense, you can get some value out of self-assessment and peer review. But final evaluations, that's you. The law says so. So that's a good question. I want to make sure that we all understand and be clear on that. In the end, it all comes back to you as the leader. You can't, you can sometimes delegate activity, but not responsibility. How they do or don't do comes home to roost with you. And that should be your number one job as an executive leader, is training teachers daily, helping them get better. Good question.
Appreciate it.
Anything else? All right. Look at me. I stayed on my time limit tonight. I'm doing better. All right. I'll see you all next week. Have a good week. And let's see. Now, next week, July the 5th, we're off next week, aren't we?
Yes.
No, I'm wrong. Next week is June. Let's see.
No, June, sorry.
Next week is June. So, yeah, we are on next week. I thought so. I had my calendar turned the wrong page there. So I'll see y'all next week at 7. Everybody have a good week.
Okay, you too.